Dan, a very good morning to you. And of course, everybody's talking about Angelo Agrizzi admitting, yes, then I suppose I'm a racist. But does it change how we actually view his testimony and the revelations he's made at this commission?
Good morning, partner. I'm sure that question will be playing itself on the minds of millions of South Africans after that confession by Angelo Agrizzi saying, yes, I'm a racist. You can judge me on that. And many people will be wondering whether or not that means his evidence cannot be trusted at all, because he said, yes, I'm a racist, and he used the K word, as we heard in that recording that was played yesterday. Well, there's a lot of discussion around that. But here at the commission, the Deputy Chief Justice, Raymond Zondo, was very clear that while the racism is unacceptable, this commission will have to consider the evidence that Mr. Angelo Agrizzi has presented before it over a marathon of 10 days. Let's take a listen at that interaction that played itself out here yesterday.
Well, Mr. Agrizzi, I can say this to you, that what I've heard you say there is extremely offensive.
Yes.
It's totally unacceptable. But that does not mean that I will not examine your evidence and see where you may be speaking the truth and where you may not be speaking the truth. I will still examine your evidence, consider it properly, consider the evidence of those who will come and give evidence about what you have said, and deal with it in the way a judge should deal with it.
Well, the Deputy Chief Justice, their partner, very clearly saying, yes, you are racist. You are saying it's unacceptable. However, this commission will have to consider the evidence that you've presented to it to discern the truth from the lies, and as it continues to investigate all kinds of allegations of state capture. So there's a separation in the mind of Raymond Zondo of the racist Angelo Agrizzi and his confession, and saying you can judge me on that, and the evidence presented here. And of course, today and going forward, there'll be other witnesses like Andries van Tonder, the former Chief Financial Officer of Bosasa, who will either corroborate or add or subtract or whatever in terms of that testimony presented by the now self-confessed racist Mr. Angelo Agrizzi. But from a political perspective, what could this mean? I'm joined here, partner, in Parktown at the Zondo Commission of Inquiry by Analyst Kagiso Bowe, just to get his take as we unpack yesterday. We're wrapping up yesterday in Tate Bowe, what took place here yesterday. Angelo Agrizzi saying I'm a racist, and he says you can judge me on that. And then on the other hand, Deputy Chief Justice saying, listen, we understand that it's unacceptable, though, completely unacceptable being a racist in this country today. However, your evidence must be looked at carefully.
Yes, and I think that's a good distinction you have to put, because the lack of character, the character of a witness when it comes to issues of evidence, it's a contributing factor, but what you truly look at is what does the data say? And I think it's going forward, especially amongst a lot of South Africans, that's what they need to really get their heads around, the fact that, yes, Yuki is an outright racist, but that does not diminish the evidence put there. And in terms of legal speak, I think the judge actually did a good thing in maybe just educating most South Africans to say, listen, you can have the most morally corrupt individual there, but when it comes to the evidence, you cannot get away from the issue of this is what's been said. And as a judicious process, what we are going to judge you on is the evidence, not the lack of character you have.
Yeah. In a way, I was just wondering, because Mr. Agrizzi said that he thinks this clip of him where he uses the K word to refer to black employees or colleagues in Bosasa at the time was issued at this time, was released at this time or leaked at this time to discredit him. But by him saying, yes, I did say that and I apologize, has somehow softened the blow.
It has not necessarily to the employees, because I think it's not correct in this day and age. But I think if you look at it historically, especially if you look at the civil rights movement in the United States, what the government did in going after certain people that committed crimes is they would use people who are morally questionable. But the thing is, the evidence would still stand. So yes, it will soften the blow in terms of saying, listen, he's done it, but the evidence stands.
I I wonder what the Human Rights Commission might do out of this confession by Mr. Agrizzi. Okay, now let's move on to the next step. The Chief Financial Officer, former of Bosasa, Andries van Tonder, took the stand yesterday afternoon, and this is the man who was involved in many of the incidents that Mr. Agrizzi has referred to, including the recording of some events that took place in Bosasa ahead of the state capture inquiry. He's in the stand now. Is it going to be important whether or not he corroborates what Mr. Agrizzi has been saying?
It's very important. Being a chief financial officer, he's the man who should have the numbers at hand. Because the relationship between the COO and the CFO and also the CEO, the triad, is actually very important. If this is really true, based upon figures and facts, this is a man that would know where the skeletons are.
No. It's a long road ahead in terms of the commission. There's still more to come. Remember, there's a cross-examination possibility which was raised yesterday and mentioned to Mr. Agrizzi that, yes, you are wrapping up today, but let us advise you that you might be back here in the near future for cross-examination. What should South Africans really be concerned about as this commission unfolds? Because in my books, we're going to be here for the long haul.
Yes, I think the key thing, and I'll just use myself in this example, is the evidence has been presented. A lot of it is quite shocking to a lot of South Africans. But the key issue, and I think what people want to know, is when does this now go through the proper judiciary? Because we have to remember, a state of inquiry is very different from a court case where it could have been a very back and forth and there's actually a final decision. I think if you speak to most South Africans, they say, we are shocked, we are tired. But where does this go? And I think that's where we want to see things going.
When does it go to judiciary? That means the NPA has to act. NPA is the one that can lay charges. Shamila Batoyi, the new NPA head, starts this Friday, the 1st of February. She has a big task ahead because, as you are saying, Mr. Bowe, the South Africans want to see action on the judiciary side. Therefore, the NPA has to move.
They have to move, but there's also a time period. I think we spoke earlier on that it's not in a year. It takes a bit longer than that. And I think that's going to be the frustration of a lot of people that, listen, you name politician X and Y, that we're going to an election, they get a position Y. And I think that's going to be the plain irritation, that the law, when it works very slowly, and maybe it's also questioning, why don't we get these things running quicker in the country? If something has come up, surely we should quickly just go to court about such things.
Is it unfair to have expected the NPA by now, or the Hawks at least by now, to have, for instance, started acting against other people like Gavin Watson himself? Maybe by now the property should have been raided, or they should have been interrogating him, because he's been sort of central in the evidence that has come out over 10 days here by Mr. Agrizzi.
This brings me to question the other inquiries that are happening, especially one that's happening in Pretoria. And we all know the state of law enforcement in South Africa. Ideally, that's what's supposed to happen, but they need to still get their house in order as the new head is coming in. And I think it's going to take a bit longer than what we expect. And then it's just the issue of saying, in the interim, is there actual political will to make sure that this goes towards a proper legal process?
Okay, Ntate, thank you very much. There you have it, partner. We're in for the long haul, but there's so much to consider at this stage. But as Kagiso Powe says here, the judiciary is going to have to play an important role. South Africans want to see action. All of this details that have come out here, all the shocking revelations, the damning allegations of bribery and corruption against some state officials, some of them current and others no longer in their positions, has to be acted upon in one way or another in the near future. Hopefully, as the commission continues, we'll find out what's going to happen.
All right, thanks very much. That's my partner Dan Moyane out there ahead of the state capture inquiry resuming a little later on this morning. Now,